Greetings, friends. Well, let's continue. Well, now we looked at the individual franchises of the Universal movie monsters. Let's look at some well-known crossovers, starting with Frankenstein's monster meets the Wolfman. Here we go. After the events of the Wolfman and Ghost of Frankenstein, two grave robbers break into the Talbot family crypt to rob the grave of Larry Talbot, a valuables buried with him on the night of a full moon. During the grave robbery, the grave robbers remove the wolf's bane buried with him, and he is awakened from death by the full moon shining down on his uncovered body and kills one of them. Talbot is found by the police in Cardiff and taken to a hospital where he is treated by Dr. Mannering. During the full moon, Talbot transforms and kills the police constable. Dr. Mannering and Inspector Owen, not believing his story of being a werewolf, travel to the village of Llanwelly to investigate Talbot. While they're away, Talbot escapes from the hospital. Seeking a cure for the curse that causes him to transform into a werewolf with every full moon, Talbot leaves Britain and seeks the gypsy woman Maleva. Together, they travel to the remains of Frankenstein's castle in the village of Assaria, where Talbot hopes to find the notes of Dr. Ludwig Frankenstein, so he might learn how to permanently end his own life through scientific means. By chance, during his transformation into a werewolf, he falls into the castle's frozen catacombs. After wandering around, he discovers Frankenstein's monster who had been frozen in ice. Finding that the monster is unable to locate the notes of the long-dead doctor, Talbot seeks out Baroness Elsa Frankenstein, hoping she knows their hiding place. A performance of the life-affirming folk song Farla Faroli enrages Talbot into a fit before the Frankenstein monster crashes the village festival. With the monster revealed, Elsa gives the notes to Talbot and Dr. Mannering, who extract Talbot from Great Britain to across Europe, so that they may be used in an effort to drain all life from both Talbot and the monster. Ultimately, however, Dr. Mannering's desire to see the monster at full strength overwhelms his logic, and to Elsa's horror he decides to fully revive it. Well, that's not good. As an unfortunate coincidence, the experiment takes place on the night of a full moon, and Talbot is transformed just as the monster regains his strength. After the monster lustfully carries off Elsa, the Wolfman attacks him, while she runs out of the castle with Mannering. The Wolfman and the monster then engage in a fight until they both get swept away in a flood that results after the local tavern owner blows up the town dam to drown the castle's inhabitants. Yeesh, well, that's pretty dark, huh? Anyway, let's look at some production elements of this movie. As ultimately edited and released, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman is told in two almost equal parts. The opening scene tells the story of Talbot's resurrection, killing spree, hospitalization, and escape across Europe. Much of the time is spent with the secondary policeman, Inspector Owen, and on scenes with the desperate Talbot hospitalized by Dr. Mannering. The discovery of the monster and pursuit of Dr. Frankenstein's scientific notes do not begin until 35 minutes into the film. The second half introduces the monster, Elsa, and the village of Assaria and its inhabitants. Screenwriter Kurt Sionmag claimed that during a lunch in the studio commissary, he had joked to producer George Wagner that he had a great title for a new film in the series. Half-heartedly, he needed down payment for a new car. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Which you mispronounced Frankenstein Wolf's the Meat Man. Wagner, not known for a casual sense of humor, left to have his lunch. Shortly thereafter, he called Sionmag to his office, telling him, "Go ahead, buy the car." Dumbfounded but pleased, the writer went to work. Thus that the next film was Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, which served as a sequel both to The Wolfman and The Ghost of Frankenstein. Immediately following his success in Dracula, Bela Lugosi had been the first choice to play the monster in Universal's original Frankenstein film, but Lugosi famously turned down the non-speaking, heavily made-up role. As succeeded by the original director Robert Florey, the monster was nothing more than a mindless killing machine and not suitable for Lugosi's rising stardom as a leading actor. After the change of directors to James Whale, along with the major script and conceptual revision, the virtually unknown Boris Karloff was cast in a star-making role. Florey later wrote that the Hungarian actor didn't show himself very enthusiastic for the role and didn't want to play it. 8 years later, Lugosi joined the franchise as the monster's twisted companion Igor in Son of Frankenstein. He returned to the role in the sequel, The Ghost of Frankenstein, in which Igor's brain is implanted into the monster, now Cheney, causing the creature to take on Lugosi/Igor's voice. After plans for Cheney to play both the monster and the Wolfman in the next film fell through for logistical reasons, the natural next step was for Lugosi, who turned 60 during the film's production, to take on the part that he was once slated to originate. The original script, and indeed the movie as originally filmed, had the monster performing dialogue throughout the film, including several references to the events of Ghost, and indicating that the monster is not blind, a side effect of the transplant as revealed at the end of the previous film, and the reason for his iconic stiff-armed Frankenstein walk. According to screenwriter Curtis Yodemak, a studio screening audience reacted negatively to this, finding the idea of the monster speaking with a Hungarian accent unintentionally funny. Though the monster spoke with the ghostie's voice at the end of Ghost of Frankenstein, the audience had been carefully prepared for it by the plot of the film. Though it cannot be confirmed through any other sources, this has generally been accepted as the reason for all scenes in which Lugosi speaks are deleted. The two brief scenes remain in the film that show Lugosi's mouth moving without sound. All references to him being blind were also eliminated, rendering the monster's groping gestures unmotivated. Close-ups of Lugosi's eyes during the revitalization scene and his evil, knowing leer to Patrick Knowles were supposed to indicate that his vision had been restored, but the ultimate context of the film mean nothing. Consequently, Lugosi is on screen literally for only a few minutes, leaving the Wolfman as the film's primary focus. Lugosi suffered exhaustion at some point during the filming, and his absence from the set, combined with his physical limitations at age 60, required the liberal use of stand-ins. Stuntman Gil Perkins allegedly portrayed the monster in the character's first scene 35 minutes into the film, and during much of the monster's fight, conclusive documentation needed. Although it still exists of Lugosi in the ice, when viewers see the monster for the first time, including close-ups, it is actually stunt double. Stuntman Eddie Parker is usually credited as Lugosi's stunt double, but his primary stunt role was thought to be that of the Wolfman. However, he does appear as the monster in at least one shot, and a possible third stuntman also stands in for Lugosi in two brief sequences. The edited result unfairly suggests that Lugosi had to be doubled, even in non-strenuous scenes, and the multiple use of alternating stuntmen in both close-ups and medium shots damages the continuity of Lugosi's characterization. As an example, the doubles in the fight scene stiffen their arms, even though that was a cautious habit of the previously blind monster. For instance, a medium shot shows Lugosi pulling down a cabinet with his arms naturally bent to the elbows, but the next shot is of a double completing the task with straightened arms. This would be the final Universal horror film in which the monster played a major role. In the subsequent films, House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, the monster, played by Glenn Strange, comes to life only in the final scenes. In the 1948 Universal comedy Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, the second and final film in which Lugosi plays Dracula, Strange has a larger role and the creature once again speaks, albeit very limited dialogue. Choice wondering, yes, master. It was also the last Universal horror film to feature an actual member of the Frankenstein family as a character. A tribute to this meeting of two horror film legends happens near the beginning of the film Alien vs. Predator and Freddy vs. Jason, when this film is seen playing on a television at the satellite receiving station. And then the US version of the 1962 film King Kong vs. Godzilla, another pairing of prominent monsters, the music from the fight scene at the end of the film also plays during the final fight between Godzilla and Kong. And I don't know about you, but that is pretty damn cool. So, yeah, a meeting between two giants. I would definitely give this one 5 jack-o'-lanterns out of 5. Well, join me tomorrow as we go to the House of Frankenstein. So, until then, see you guys.